Guess what? We're now live, not on the radio, but just on Facebook and on Periscope and YouTube as well.
And TikTok? No.
No.
No TikTok.
Not today, Doc. No TikTok,
No
Doc.
dancing in the TikTok.
No, none of that. Okay, so this is the preamble before we catch up with the radio stations. And if you're watching us on Facebook, thank you very much. Tell your friends, share if you care. And when we get onto the radio, we will then plug the Facebook people. So treat them nicely in the chats. You know who you are. Tommy.
Yeah, he's pretty loyal listener. Gotta love him.
Yes, I wonder if Norman will check in today as well.
We shall see.
Yes, Norman from Massachusetts. All right, so let's make sure that we are live on the Dealio, and then we are about a minute and change away from going live over here. Okay, and then I'm going to pop over to the text line. So we're going to talk. It's Melissa, by the way. I'm invisible.
You are right now.
I am invisible. I am.
Oh, without Lizzie here. That's right. Yeah, she's the one that flips things back and forth. Got it. Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. So we got a minute to go. Now, let's look at the chat, see who anybody here. Let's say hello to you all. All right, there we go. I'm going to give you a link so that you can actually share the proper video. This watch party stuff is ridiculous and useless, and all it does is split the ticket and confuse everybody. And people make comments and such, and it just doesn't work.
Well, no, and you're supposed to be socially distanced. And electronically, that is not social distancing. So wouldn't you know? You can't exchange electrons because you just might catch a computer virus.
All right, let's see what we got here. 22 seconds. I'm going to turn the other deal up here. Is it that time?
It is time for Stages of Life, a weekly guide to a healthier you.
Oh, that is Dr. David Klein. I am Melissa Fox from Good Morning Orlando and hosting the rest of the afternoon here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Get your fingers ready. 407-422-1212. That's the number to check in. And if you want to just text your questions, thoughts, or otherwise, the text line's 23680. So what's on your mind today, Dr. Klein?
Well, we're looking at a brand new audience. You know, this is really only our third week on FLA. Okay, and so if you're listening to a rebroadcast of this for whatever reason, it's a rebroadcast. But if you're listening live, we are here in happy Longwood, Florida. And what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss what the Stages of Life Medical Institute, that's my office, all 23 of us sitting in that 13,500 square foot office in Longwood, what our approach is, what our philosophy might be, and what we do for our patients, some of which is very familiar. It looks like a regular medical office, except it's loaded with art, okay? It looks like a regular medical office, except that we don't run around with white coats. Very few stethoscopes. We do very, very basic, very mainstream medicine with a very interesting approach to it. And the approach is different. You know, what we do is we look at people as individuals, and doctors are supposed to do that, but, you know, that kind of time has come and gone. More and more physicians look at things more and more narrowly. You know, if you've got a cataract, you go see the cataract doc. In fact, if you have a retinal issue, you see somebody else, because it's not enough to be an ophthalmologist. You have to be a retinologist. So if you're going to go see somebody for your diabetes, you go see a diabetologist. If you've got this, you got that. You're seeing people that really see diseases instead of seeing you. Now, I've got 5 board certifications. That kind of makes me what's known as a super specialist. And yet, what I really prefer to do is to become a generalist. It's kind of a throwback. You know, this is what I was originally trained to do. I started off as a family doc, went into general surgery, went from here to there, bounced around, getting pieces of paper out of the equation, and finally turned straight around and became a generalist. So the approach is kind of interesting. So when we see people, when they come in, I like to get a fresh look at folks. I like to see their records. I like to see the lab work that was done. I like to see the radiology stuff, but only after I've seen the patient and formulated my own opinion. Why do you suppose that is? And it's very simple. I don't want to be polluted by somebody else's error. And By the time people come to me, they've already seen 5, 10, 15, 20 other physicians, and they can't figure out what's wrong. So why in the world why should I care what other people are thinking? Now, this doesn't make a lot of friends for me, I got to tell you. It's kind of like, what am I doing? I specialize in misdiagnosis, other people's misdiagnosis. So the first thing we do, our first mission at Stages of Life. Now, it's not Dr. Klein's clinic, it's Stages of Life Medical Institute. Our first mission is to figure out what's wrong, establish a precise diagnosis as to what's going on. And this would seem to be self-evident, and yet it really isn't. You can go bouncing around, gee, I've got chest pain, and you're going to see 15 doctors before they come back and tell you, oh, well, gee, we think it might be X, Y, and Z, but we're really not sure. Let's just keep an eye on it, and here's $1,000 a month worth of medication just in case. That's not the way we operate. The trick is to look under not every conceivable stone, but every reasonable stone until you figure out what's wrong. So there are many diseases that are out there that come in. Many people come in with these diseases or conditions that have no known cause. My favorite of which is fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is pain of fibromuscular origin with no known cause, which tells me that somebody didn't look very hard. So are there causes, known causes of fibromyalgia? And the answer is many. Everything from too little calcium, too much calcium, too little magnesium, too much magnesium. Easy. Hypothyroidism, hypoadrenalism. It gets a little bit tougher. There are many vitamin deficiency states that will make you ache all over. And then there are things like influenza that'll do it. Trichinella. I have seen some very, very strange things causing fibromyalgia, my most favorite of which is hyperparathyroidism. So we check every person that comes through the front door over the age of 30 for parathyroid disease, and we pick up 2 to 3 parathyroid adenoma patients per month. This is supposed to be a rare disease. If you look at the NIH's group on rare diseases, you'll see it listed in there. It's only rare if you don't look, and that's true of everything. If you don't look, you will not find. If you keep an open mind, you will learn things. So a prepared mind is really what we offer. We offer the ability to look at things without really being distracted very much. And we do it with a light heart. We do it with some alacrity, some affability. We don't make you wait 6 weeks to come in. We work hard. We start early and stay late. That is actually our motto, all right? And so if somebody has to wait, it's because of them, not because of us. Because we will work you in that week unless I'm out of town. If I'm out of town, I'm taking a rare vacation, okay? But short of that, is tomorrow fast enough? The day after that? So generally speaking, when people have to wait to come in, it's because of their own delays, not because of ours. So first thing that we do is we look at diagnosis, and it's done largely through electrodiagnosis and through blood work. Now, these are not holistic, hold the bottle over your chest, wave your hand, and say the following 6 words and see if your arm gets weak. No, we don't do any of this. This is very, very objective, very reproducible, and it's done with a federally licensed, highly complex laboratory, which I happen to run. Why? Okay, why would I ask for more aggravations? Okay, I got to tell you, most everybody's getting out of this business, and I'm getting into it, because it gives me the most precise, the absolutely most precise diagnosis you can get. And I want you to imagine this for a second, okay? And I'm sure that there are at least, 2,000 or 3,000 people listening right now that are going to experience this. They go to the doctor's office. They get evaluated. They get their blood drawn. It's almost always the same thing anyway. Okay, and if you look for the same thing over and over again, not find it, you're just not going to discover anything. I got to tell you. But just the same, they go through the motions. Where does that blood go? It sits in a box outside the doctor's office on a little metal hanger, okay? And it sits out there until 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night when the courier comes by to pick it up. Now, there's a problem with that, okay? It may sit out there for 6, 7, 8 hours, and it gets hot. Here in Florida, it gets to be 140 degrees inside that box. If you're up north, it might only get to be 100 degrees. But what happens is the blood spoils. Now, I want you to imagine that you are going to take a test tube full of milk and put it out there, send it off to Tampa, send it to St. Louis, send it to San Francisco, and then drink it on the other end. And I want you to tell me that it's going to taste right. Could it be? What happens if it were a beer or a wine and you did the same thing? They spoil. These liquids are not as complicated as blood. And yet we treat it very, very badly, and you end up with something called sampling error. The most common of which is you see liver enzymes. Okay, liver enzymes go wonky because all it takes is a little bit of disturbance, and they'll shoot up unnecessarily. So there are people out there that get evaluated for liver disease, liver biopsies, all kinds of crazy stuff because of the way the sample was handled. So what we do is we take it and we walk it 30 to 60 feet, okay, down the hallway to my laboratory. It's spun, frozen, or run immediately. That's the way it works. So there's no sampling error. You don't end up with problems of handling. You don't see our technicians taking these tubes and shaking them. When you take a blood tube and shake it, tat, 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 okay, what will happen is the blood lyses. The little red cells, they open up, and the chemicals inside the blood cells end up going into the serum, and it throws it off. The enzymes that you're looking at, they'll go up, down, sideways. Is very, very interesting. But there are other things that will happen. Things degrade. So I was an analytical chemist before I was a doctor. That was my first career choice after musician, which I was not a good musician. I was a professional, but not really world class. So I went back to school and became a chemist. I was pretty good at it. Okay, and we learned something about the standard error of the estimate, and that's a statistical tool that we use to tell people, tell ourselves, tell whomever, that the real value is within a particular range. So it might be 16 plus or minus 2. What's this all about? You would think that all numbers are absolute. Well, they're not. Measurements have this particular variability. And when you're taking blood and shipping it, the standard error of the estimate doubles. It's very, very interesting how this works. What do you do about autoantibodies? They will degrade. As a chemist, I learned something interesting. As an undergraduate, we did a little laboratory experiment, and we took orange juice and assayed the amount of vitamin C in it. Vitamin C, ascorbic acid, it's a pretty basic chemical. Nothing strange about vitamin C. Nothing complicated about the structure of vitamin C. It's not a big molecule, it's a small molecule. And we assayed it in analytical chemistry lab, quantitative analysis. And we found that at room temperature, it degraded by 50% each and every 45 minutes. Think about that for a second. Vitamin C levels, in orange juice will drop 50% every 45 minutes. What do you suspect? Okay, so a complex mixture like blood is going to do if it's allowed to sit at room temperature or hotter for as much as 2 to 3 days. You're going to end up with garbage results. So why did I do it? And the answer is very simple. It's Dexter's Lab. If you got any kids, you'll understand what that means. Dexter. It's a cartoon.
Any millennial children?
Millennial children, yeah. Millennials don't listen to this. They're out there playing video games. But for those of you that didn't endure Dexter's Lab, my daughter's now 30 years old. I had to endure this substantially. It was a cartoon character that had the most marvelous laboratory, and that's the way I see my life. And so, we're always buying new and improved gadgets, new and improved analytical devices. We just installed this huge, marvelous, automated robotic machine that will chunk out like lab sample after lab sample. Bam, 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 bam. So what are we doing now at Stages of Life? What's our most recent research project? And it's called quantitative analysis of COVID-19 antibody levels. And you're going to go, what the heck is he talking about? When we tell people that you're antibody positive, okay, IgM, it means you're infectious. IgG means you might not be. But we don't tell people just how likely are they to be to have an immunity for when it comes back. Well, as an analytical chemist, this is fun to me. So I managed to get in the back door of the darn machines to get the quantitative values out of these things and then validate them, which is a fun thing to do, so we can actually assign numbers to these. So if somebody comes in, they're IgG positive, it's one thing to have a level of 4. It's something else to have a level of 40. We can tell people whether the disease is getting better because the IgG titer is going up, whether they're resolving because it's dropping down, or whether they have relative immunity. Now, this is important for planning. What happens if you're a teacher? Okay, and little Johnny gets sick. Don't you think it'd be nice to know that little Johnny isn't infectious anymore because his IgG level went up to 30? And more so, that his parents might want to know that he's not likely to pick it up again in the fall or again in the spring. That is wickedly cool. So that's a little ditty that we started doing at Stages last week. We're looking at quantitative PCR. Why? Okay, because if somebody comes in and they're PCR positive, how do you know that you can get back to work? We tell people, well, you need to be checked in a week. If you listen to the CDC, they say every 3 days until you're negative twice. At $100 a pop. Okay, that's a lot of money to this country, Doc. So I'm not really interested in watching people spend that kind of cash. I'd far rather than that they take their kids out for pizzas. Not really. But the way that you figure out whether or not somebody is getting better or not is looking at the PCR viral load. Then you can see whether they're getting better. That is a pretty good summary of our most recent stuff that we're doing at Stages. Nobody else is doing it. If you want to go get your lab work done at the big box, I can't really say who they are because I'm afraid that they might get mad at me, okay, then you're not going to get that data because they're not really going to give it. And they don't even really care if you call them on the phone and ask them what it means. There's nobody to answer your phone call. They tell you, well, you need to talk to your doctor. Great, okay? So ask your doctor what that means. Okay, along with the laboratory, they get me. So what is Stages of Life? We have our own diagnostic ultrasound in there, so if we need something quickly, we do it right then. You come in with pain in your right upper quadrant, that means over the liver. We'll do an ultrasound right there. We don't have to send you to the hospital to go, gee, let's get a gallbladder ultrasound. We'll know very, very quickly. This is just the sort of thing that we do. Thyroid ultrasounds we do all day long, looking for parathyroid adenomas all day long, looking for cancers all day long. How do you make the diagnosis of mumps? Which, by the way, if you're listening in right now and you're over the age of 30, go out and get yourself a booster. They call them DTaps, which we used to call DPTs. But you need a pertussis tetanus diphtheria injection every 10 years. You can still get mumps as an adult. All right. Why is this a big deal? Okay, because if you're 30 years old, 40 years old, it'll sterilize you if you're a guy. Kind of for some people, it's probably not a bad idea. But for most everybody else that's concerned about procreation, it doesn't work so well. With an ultrasound, you can actually scope out the parotids and see whether or not somebody has mumps. It's very, very cool. You don't have to wait around for a titer. It doesn't cost as much to do the ultrasound. So at Stages of Life, what do? It's good old-fashioned medicine done completely and done on location. Question, okay, what insurances do we take? And the answer is very few. We take Medicare. We take a good number, but not all Medicare Advantage plans. In my world, there is no advantage to Medicare Advantage plans. What they do is they take from you and stick it in their pockets. If that works for you, good. Doesn't work for me. I'm of Medicare age. I pay for it. Why? Because I want the freedom to choose whatever doctor I want, not some unpronounceable individual in a catalog who may or may not be board eligible. Frankly, these are the low bid folks. So Medicare, some Advantage plans. We take TRICARE. Interestingly, I was a vet, so I take TRICARE. We're trying to get right now onto the VA program, which you would think it'd be easy because they're looking for docs. Good luck. Okay, it's just impossible to deal with the federal government. We used to take Blue Cross, but we help you submit them. So we discount things for folks that don't have insurances that we take. And we're going to take a little break. Then we've got some callers, and so far, so good.
You're listening to Stages of Life Radio on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
Is unique. Unlike your average pharmacy, pharmacy
Hang on,
specialists
guys.
prepare customized medications to meet your specific needs. Their approach combines the...
It's just me, don't panic. So, Dr. Dave, we have a few questions for the online people here.
Cool.
If you can, is it safe to have dental work despite
Independently
COVID?
owned pharmacy
Sure,
specialists
the
have
person
been
that's at
serving the
greatest
needs
risk
of
for
Central
getting
Florida
COVID is the
patients for
dentist,
over
believe it or
2
not.
decades. They
So if your
offer
dentist is in the office doing dental work, God bless them, because they're really putting themselves in harm's way. Every time they go in there, they're exposing themselves far more than you're being exposed to them. So the answer is yeah. And whatever you do, tip the hygienist.
Really?
Yeah, because they're the ones that really take the heat on this one. So no, the COVID is not a problem for dental work unless you're the dentist and the hygienist. And I've got a number of patients that are, and so there's some things that I do for them to give them a little extra protection. What's the next question?
The next question is, hold on. I like FLA. We'll tune in for the hour just to listen to your show. What's wrong with that, Providencia?
They're nice to us. Well, actually, they're nicer than the last station was to me. I got to tell you. Well, you've got 2 days' notice to let you know that we're cutting 80% of your listenership out. And by the way, we're not changing your bill. So,
oh, how about that? Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's why there was a diuresis. In medicine, we would call it a diuresis. That's where you pee things out. So the experts on the weekend peed their way from the other station to FLA. So maybe there'll be an increase in quality here. I hope so.
I hope so.
We're working it. So, but thank you for tuning in. Okay, because
definitely. Let's see, Yippee, you're here. You
Yippee.
Disappeared from the other station.
No kidding, I disappeared. I ran. There was a puff of smoke and a hearty hi-oh silver, and I was gone.
I actually saw that. The puff of smoke.
Puff of smoke.
Hi-ho.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
Yeah, after 10 years doing that, there was, they drummed me out. It was the old rip off the epaulets and take the sword and break it in half. And if you've ever tried to break a sword in half, that'll cut your fingers off. They do it on TV, but I don't think you really can do it.
No?
No, not without losing your fingers.
Let me see. I'm interesting here. We still have a couple of minutes. So,
Cool.
If you guys are online, you have any questions for Dr. David Klein, please ask. I know they always want to know about the quick the COVID testing hotline and the fast tests.
Sure. Okay. Well, the deal with fast. Okay, not everything is as fast as you want it. Okay, and sometimes for very, very good reason. But the COVID hotline is 407-636-3945. And that rings through to our sales guy. His name is Robert. Okay, and principally what he does is he handles emergencies. He handles things like nursing homes and whatnot. And for bringing people in singlets, basically, he'll go ahead and set that up. So we have an office in Jacksonville and one in St. Augustine. So if you need something done like immediately of a PCR nature, okay, that's where you really want to go because it chops 10 to 12, 14 hours off the turnaround time. Because if you get out there by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll be on that evening's run, and it gets reported by 3 o'clock in the morning. With a caveat, if it looks positive, okay, or if it's speckles, let's say, okay, it possibly is. Then it goes again. We run it a second time. Okay, why do we want to do that? Because nobody is going to come out with a false positive under my watch. So if it has to be run a second time, it takes an extra day. So, for the most part, if you hear about it early, it's a good thing. If there's a delay, it might not be so great. But that's 407-636-3945. Ask for Robert. And then and if you call him in the middle of the night, don't tell him I told you to call.
Okay. All right, hang on a second here.
But also, if you need finger sticks and the other stuff, we do them in Longwood.
We're back, guys. How are you? Welcome back to the show, which we call Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein. Love to have you along with us today. So you want to check in? 407-422-1212. We've got a buddy on the line already. You know that, right? So we should probably try and take that. Let's see if he's still there. Oh, Mark from Lakeland, 67 years old, complaining of eczema.
Excellent. Nothing more excellent than eczema. So, Mark, what's up?
Well, good afternoon. Let me first congratulate you on your new radio station. They have better coverage with this one.
What a shock! So yeah, but you're exactly right. I guess I was spoiled with it before until they decided to chop its legs off. They had the 500-pound gorilla in the state. They had the best coverage of any station in the entire state, and they blew it. But that's what happens when you sell it out. You sell it to somebody else, and they think they can do better. And some pencil jock with an MBA from Chicago happens every time. Yeah. So what,
happens every time. Okay.
So what do we got?
Back to eczema. Two quick questions. Sure. First off, since I retired and went on Medicare, my Medicare and my new insurance has required me to change doctors and change treatments.
Yes.
I was originally on Eucrisa. Now I'm on triamcinolone.
Yeah, what you did is you got yourself a Medicare disadvantage plan. Okay, so you went ahead. Yeah, you went ahead and you believed the person on television, Joe Namath or whomever it happens to be, who, by the way, isn't doing it for free, right? Okay, so these guys get up there, they get paid a lot of commission to sell you something, then they take a third of the value right off the table. Eucrisa is a marvelous topical anti-inflammatory. Great stuff. But, you know, something triamcinolone...
That I cannot get with Medicare.
No, you can get it. You just can't get it with the one you have. So what you need... now, here's what you need to do.
Okay.
Okay, because triamcinolone isn't going to cut it. Okay? Triamcinolone, right. you can get a kilogram of triamcinolone, or 1 pound jar, 454 grams of this stuff for about $4. Okay, that's the wholesale price. Okay, it is some serious cheap. It's cheaper than face cream. All right, so what do? Right. Well, we'll get you the cheap stuff because the other stuff is a few $100, and after all, you are not worth it. So how do you do this? Well, we'll talk about what you can do in the meantime, but the first thing you need to do, okay, is to go ahead and go on mymedicare.gov and pick a Medicare Part D plan. Okay, that's or whatever they call the pharmacy plan these days, and find one that covers Eucrisa. And then when you do, okay, then you go ahead and sign up for it, and it will automatically disenroll you from the Medicare Advantage plan. That is how you get out of Medicare Advantage plans. They'll tell you have to wait a year. Well, guess what? I just told 200,000 people how they can get out from underneath Medicare Advantage plans and do it with a single telephone call. How do you keep from getting wrapped back into it, you might ask? When you sign up for your pharmacy plan, sign up for the pharmacy plan, and then get a supplemental by a different insurance company. I don't care who it is. Doesn't matter who it is. Makes little or no difference. But as long as they're different, they can't roll you into a Medicare Advantage plan. So what I did for myself is I have Aetna, or United Healthcare, I believe, for my pharmacy. And then I've got Mutual of Omaha for my supplemental. I have them both take money right out of my checking account, and I'm happy. I'm very, very pleased. All right, now getting back to your eczema. Okay, so they took away the stuff that took care of the problem, which is a marvelous non-steroidal topical anti-inflammatory. It's a leukotriene actor. It's very, very cool the way that stuff works. So what I'm going to suggest that you do in the meantime until you're able to unwind from the Medicare disadvantage plans, which is what I think they should be called, is you want to start yourself... where is the eczema on your body? Where's it?
When it got bad, it manifested itself on my hands, torso, and feet. Okay. Now it's dialed back down just to my hands.
Okay, piece of cake. There are a couple things you need to make sure of, because you can end up with fungal infections that can mimic eczema. Okay, and if that happens, you have to treat it very, very differently. And so I've maybe half a dozen patients who you would swear had eczema on their hands. Okay, but I ended up having to start them on topical antifungals, and that squared it away. So the very first thing that I'm going to have you do is answer the following question. What did you do for a living before you retired?
I retired from the post office about 1.5 years ago.
Okay, so did you find yourself wearing gloves a lot?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. But that was the paper I was working with. Handling 1 billion letters a day would take the oil right out of your skin.
I'm not so worried about the oil. I'm more worried about the perspiration. So when you're finding yourself wearing gloves, especially work gloves that may have been worn by somebody else, it's very, very common to pick up fungal infections that way. So you see it with firemen, you see it with garbage people, you see it with folks that work at yard work. So I've got one guy right now that I had to treat for a year for something called Sporothrix shankii, which is a type of fungus that hits the hands and arms. Okay, and so he had this thing for years. Okay, and so I put him on 1 pill a day of an antifungal, and it went away. So what I'm going to suggest that we do with you first is to use topical castor oil, which is an anti-inflammatory, an antibacterial, and an antifungal. The second thing is get grapefruit seed extract. Okay, great. And what you do with it is you take 1 capsule twice a day. This is the oral stuff. And then the second thing is grapefruit seed extract liquid. And you cut it 50-50 and you wipe that into your hands. And you want to do this for about 6 weeks. After that, trade out the GSE, the grapefruit seed extract, for tea tree oil with shampoo. And you wash your hands sudsy with the tea tree oil. It's another antifungal. That should start knocking it down. If the redness starts to go away, it's really going to suggest that it's a fungus rather than eczema.
There's a fungus among us. I will tell you what, Doc, we need to take a quick break here.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much for the call. His line is now available at 407-422-1212. We've got some questions on the text line as well, 23680, if you want to get on board with us. It is Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein.
FLA News Center. 107 more deaths reported in Florida from the coronavirus Sunday, the day that typically has the lowest numbers of the week. More than 9,400 have died.
That's me. Don't panic. Are you ripping on Medicare again, Doc?
Sorry, baby?
Yes, are you ripping on Medicare?
Oh, I'm always ripping on Medicare. Not Medicare. I'm ripping Medicare Advantage. Medicare is marvelous.
Only statewide office holder, one of its rising
But why would somebody take the finest insurance that you can possibly get? Yeah, the only one that might be better is Federal Blue Cross, because those gentlemen and gentlewomen, they will in fact steal from you in terms of just they'll take from you anything they can. Medicare for the rest of us, though. So what are they going to do? Medicare for all, which means Medicare for none.
For none.
Yeah, it's just marvelous.
All right, let's see what we got here.
Why should you have a good one if I can't get one? It's just the way things
That's
work.
the math.
Why? Because I've only been working for 58 years to get it.
Oh my
You want to work a little harder, you knock yourself out. So guess what? Oh yeah, well it doesn't matter. You had an opportunity to work harder and longer. You know?
They're mean.
People crack me up.
All right, let's see what we got. Where was we? Yeah, we got a couple of questions here on the text line we'll address, and what did I do? There we go. There's another call. That's good.
Gotta love it.
I know.
High tech. That's what we're looking at here. This is
that's some
high tech.
Whoa! Let's see. My husband's on the Whole30 diet,
The Whole30?
which doesn't give you a lot of fats. It's making him constipated.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what a shock. Okay. All right. Here's the way these things work. Your colon. Okay, that's the large bowel to those of you that are non-medical. The colon has one function, one alone, and that is to take water out of your poop. Fecal material if you're a medical type, right? So it takes the water out of your poop. So guess what? Okay, if you get dehydrated, the poop starts to get a little bit hard, gets a little thick. But if you take oil in your diet, not fat but oil, it'll pass through into the colon and doesn't get absorbed. It loosens things up. So when you take oil out of your diet, it's a natural thing that you're going to get constipated. It happens every time. Same thing with opiates. Opiates do the same thing. It slows GI motility. Every person that's on opiates is going to become constipated. So the first thing we do for folks isn't to sell them an $800 a month pill, which, by the way, a lot of people do because they just feel like wasting $9,000 a year. What you do is you take flaxseed oil and something called CLA. These are two oils that the body has a hard time absorbing. They start in your teeth, end up in your tail, and it prevents the constipation. So the first thing you're going to ask your husband to do is to start on 2 grams of flaxseed oil at bedtime and 2,500 milligrams of CLA twice a day. It's going to take 3 or 4 days before it goes from teeth to tail, and he's going to start getting better and better at going to the bathroom. And then after a period of time, he's going to start feeling pretty good. The temptation is to come off of it, and the answer is no, you stay on this as long as you're taking one of these goofy diets.
Oh, in 30 seconds, we're going to be back on the radio.
Okay.
Thank you all for listening and watching us on Facebook as well as on Periscope
Sometimes
and
known as Poop
YouTube. So what we're doing here today is we're simulcasting. We're broadcasting on the radio as well as on the iHeartRadio app. You can find us every Sunday from 4 until 5, and it's just about time to come back. So here we go.
You know, I like the way this is set up.
I like the way this is set up, too.
This is good.
That's Dr. David Klein. You are listening to Stages of Life Radio every Sunday afternoon from 4 until 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also catch the replays on podcasts, iHeartRadio app podcast, or wherever you get your favorite podcast. If you hear anything referenced that you're interested in, nutraceutical-wise or other, just go to stagesoflifevitamins.com. And now, Dr. David Klein.
He's in the house. The doctor is in. So we're taking calls right now, and what I'm going to discuss now, okay, just because I have a moment to do it and I have just an urge to do this, is a little bit of philosophy, okay, because the medicine part, it actually comes very easily. It's not that difficult. Philosophy is more interesting to me. So what is the philosophy of medicine? Okay, what is it all about? Why do we care? People talk about allopathic medicine, which is, Dr. Welby. You go down there, you have a sore throat, they give you a pill, you go away. You stay away until you get sick again, but nobody really pays attention to making you better, to make your performance improve, or to keep you out of trouble. What about homeopathic medicine? Okay, people think that that's the opposite of allopathic, and the answer is no. Homeopathic medicine is very, very different. That's where you give somebody a tiny bit of something, and magically the body makes more of it. Okay, if that makes sense to you, then you're going to have to explain it to me. So if you think you're deficient in zinc, we give you just a little bit of zinc and your body manufactures an element, which of course it can't do. So allopathic medicine and homeopathic medicine are not opposites. They're just different philosophies. There are homeopathic medicines that are useful. Okay, Arnica montana being a very, very useful homeopathic medicine for knocking bruises out. Okay, it's marvelous stuff. But when you're looking at things like diuretics, things for your heart, things for immune system, maybe not. They're expensive, but they give you very, very little. Then you have different types of viewpoints. So let's say you've got a foot problem. You go to the podiatrist. They will look at things in a podiatric point of view. The same foot problem. You go ahead and go to an orthopedic surgeon. You're going to see it from an orthopedic standpoint. And the joke is the problem doesn't change, but the viewpoint and the treatments might. So you have to make a decision. Who do you go to see? You might have a knee problem. You can go see a physical medicine rehab doc, orthopedic surgeon. You might want to go to a GP or a veterinarian if you have a good one, all right, to try to figure out what's wrong. The philosophy is just that. People looking at small areas with a small or narrow background. What you really want is somebody who can look at things several different ways in order to figure out what's going on. So the rule of thumb in pediatrics is if a kid comes in with knee pain, you look at the hip. All right, why? Because knee pain is often a referred pain from a hip. The same thing is true of the elderly, except geriatric folks don't necessarily watch this. The orthopedic surgeons may or may not. So the body doesn't change in spite of your age. Neurologically, it may change a little bit. Pharmacologically, it may change a lot, but it doesn't change that much. At stages of life, what we do is we look at things as if they were performance-mediated, performance medicine. So it's a matter of life's trajectories. Now, what am I talking about? What's that all about? I want you to imagine way back when you were in junior high school and they showed you a bow and arrow. Okay? You're supposed to go out in the field and you're supposed to do a bow and arrow. Girls do this. Guys sometimes. Well, what a foolish thing for a junior high school to do is to give a kid a bow and arrow. That when you think about it, that's like giving your grandkids a drum set. I mean, honest to God, what are we going to do? Oh, next year you get a trampoline. Oh, okay. These are really bad ideas, but we used to do this. But what you learned with a bow and arrow is that if you really want to shoot that arrow far, let's say you want to hit your neighbor's house with it, what you do is you elevate to 45 degrees, okay, because that'll give you your longest throw, your longest. It will give you the longest range that you can. Artillery folks have this thing figured out. It goes back to the Greeks when they really developed trigonometry. It was how do you bomb your neighbor? That's what trigonometry was all about. What's mathematics all about? How can we kill people more effectively? All right, in medicine, you try to help people. So life's trajectory, how can we get the best longevity? That is your range. That is what you're looking to get done. So how do you adjust your windage? How do you adjust your elevation if you're a shooter? If you're I was a target shooter. I was a competitive pistol and rifle guy. And so how do you get these things dialed in? And that's what we do. We look at those sorts of influences that are likely to shorten your tenure. Okay? Now, you might find this one hard to believe. Okay? But a normal blood sugar is 75 to 85 milligram percent. Okay? 75 to 85. But normal's up to 99, and my doctor won't treat me unless it's 120. Your life expectancy decreases with every milligram percent over 85. Your life expectancy decreases. Think about that for a second. So you might want to tighten up your blood sugar because you're not going to live that long or live long enough if you do. Then comes the, gee, I don't want to live forever. You won't anyway, so you don't have to want that. No worries, you're not going to. But do you want to keep both of your legs, all of your toes? That's always a concern. Do you want to make sure that your intimacy maintains? These are the sorts of things that you really don't want to live longer than that. My dad was 92 when he passed away, and when he was 90, I asked him, I said, hey, Dad, would you like me to get you some Viagra? He lived in one of these retirement communities. My dad was my hero. So I thought, hey, what can a son who's a doctor do for his dad? Okay, that you can't do otherwise. So I asked, hey, want me to get you some Viagra? He looked at me. He said, Dave, that's for old people.
Oh, boy.
The son of a gun had it dialed in. He'd been my patient for 30 years, okay, and he did really, really well. So what do? We look to optimize. Insulin level is something that most of the listeners on this show right now have never heard of. On the previous radio station, they'd heard this a lot. Insulin levels are extraordinarily important. If your insulin level's over 15 for any length of time, your chances of cancer increase. Heart disease go up. It's fascinating. When was the last time you had your insulin level checked?
Probably never.
Well, probably never. My A1C is this, my A1C is that, my blood sugar is this. Your insulin level is what tells you what your longevity is going to do. And we're going to come back after a break because I think we have to.
You're right, but we're going to keep on the same idea, but not Viagra. We've got a couple of gentlemen who have questions, seriously, who have questions about stud mix and health problems.
Well, you too can be more like Dr. Dave.
Indeed. And on that note, we're going to take a break at Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
Way too much fun. That one was for the that one was for the uppity opposite FLA. They're gonna go, oh no, did he just say that?
Right.
It's Sunday. We can say what we want.
Yeah, we can say what we want until we can't say what
until they tell us differently. For our nighttime show, the rules change. We do a show every other Thursday. What are the hours on that?
It's 7 to 8 o'clock.
7 to 8 o'clock. Okay, and
yes.
it's Connections Radio. It's with a twist, as it were, and we're allowed to do and say things that we're not permitted to when kids are around. Not how many kids out there right now are up after 7 or 8 at night? Mm-hmm. I'd say all of them.
Nowadays, yeah.
So maybe we'll teach them a thing or two. So what do we got on there?
All right. We got 2 minutes over there. So you mentioned last week about sores in the nose and what I can do for it. I've had them for a couple of months now. The rheumatologist gave me steroids for it, but I don't want to take it.
Good move.
I can't go to your office till mid-September.
All right. You may just have to wait until mid-September. What I'm going to suggest that you do in the meantime, okay, is to put either, there are these herpes type lotions that you can get at the pharmacy, and try that out and see how the thing works for you. But generally speaking, a little bit of Vaseline is all you need to do. All right, what does it do? It's an anti-inflammatory. It acts as a bandage. It keeps it from drying out. Castor oil works also, but just a little bit of Vaseline ought to do the job. Gold Bond makes a product in a tiny little tube, which is 30% Vaseline, and so. My wife is saying it's called a cold sore ointment. Okay, yeah, well, that's really what they are. Okay, but Gold Bond works just fine.
I don't know. I put some Carmex up there.
Carmex?
Yeah.
I thought they're the ones that sold.
Oh. No, Carmex.
Oh, Carmex. I gotcha. Okay. Well,
Camphor.
I use. Oh, okay. So, but I use the same stuff on my fingers. Okay, so if for whatever reason your hands dry out, if you wash your hands a lot, like we all are, so you get these little cracks next to your nails. So the Gold Bond makes a very, very good product for this. It's a tiny little tube, costs a few dollars, and you put just the smallest drop on there, and it knocks it out in a couple days. It'll do the same thing for the sore in the nose, actually. But to take a steroid for that is insane.
No, that's really ridiculous.
One of the things that these steroids will do for you, okay, they will keep guys like me very busy. When you take oral steroids unnecessarily, it shoots down a hormone called ACTH, which stands for adrenocorticotropin hormone. And you're going to go, who cares? You care. The fact that you don't know about it doesn't make it any more or less important. So what will happen?
Yes, quickly.
Because cortisol levels drop, your immune system takes a hammering, and so does your testosterone, because that is one of the sequelae of this. So guess what? Things stop working.
Things started working just now, though, really.
Love it.
Let's be honest. Welcome back to Stages of Life Radio. I am Melissa Fox, along with Dr. David Klein from Stages of Life Medical Institute. Throw a .com behind that, Stages of Life Medical Institute.com. That's like a landing page for the world at your fingertips, honestly. You can follow us on social media as well from there, and you can find all kinds of diagnoses and explanations there for symptoms, medicines, you name it, right?
Differentiation through education. So what do? Okay, I've spent hundreds of thousands of hard-earned dollars to put these websites together and give you information.
So go there.
Go there. Take advantage of it. I mean, if you think that research is doing a Google search, you are dead wrong. Read what I have to write and then go to the National Library of Medicine, PubMed, and verify it. Okay? Then you're actually getting close to doing a little bit of research.
I think Joe is on the line, and I
Joe.
think he may have already texted us, too. It is Joe from Longwood. Hi, Joe. How
Hello.
are you?
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Joe's got a problem with some stud mix. What's
Okay.
going on? What's the question, Joe?
Oh, my question is this: not a problem. I started taking it about three weeks ago, but
right.
I also take 3 medications for my high blood pressure,
All right.
and I was wondering if it mixes. One is clonidine 0.3 milligrams.
How often?
Hydrochloroquine.
How often are you taking the... Yeah.
Clonidine.
Yeah.
The clonidine twice a day.
All right.
The hydrochlorothiazide and even get the other one.
Losartan?
Losartan.
Yeah.
Losartan once,
Okay.
and I take a potassium.
No problem. Yeah, okay, the stud mix isn't going to interfere with it at all. There are 2 things in that stud mix that may actually lower your blood pressure. L-arginine and ornithine. These are 2 amino acids that are vasodilators. So if anything, it'll bring your blood pressure down. So the only thing that's going to go down by taking stud mix is going to be your blood pressure. So...
Oh, okay.
Oh, hello.
Now,
Ow,
My
ow.
my wife was worried. Yeah,
Your
I
wife-
really respect your opinion. I want to tell you that right off the bat.
I appreciate it. And yeah, so the deal with stud mix, okay, it's very interesting stuff. You take 3 capsules at bedtime, and I hope you're doing it right. 3 at bedtime, and it lowers
I am.
It lowers estrogen levels. Okay, and it does this through inhibition of 2 enzymes, one called aromatase, the other one's called 5-alpha reductase. Not important for you to know the names of the enzymes. It's important for you to know that it actually hits something and very, very specific. It's a vasodilator, so that way you wake up a whole lot easier for your wife to enjoy, if you get my drift. So
yes.
the bedtime is important because your body secretes
Yes.
estrogen between 3 and 6 in the morning. Actually, it secretes testosterone, and the estrogen is the
Oh.
degradation product. So the timing is key, absolutely key.
Gotcha.
Alrighty, and so what else do we usually take when you're doing stud mix? You give that about 2 to 3 months to see how it's going to hit, and then if you need an extra kick, you do one of 2 things: either a product called Nomowining, I get to name it, okay?
Okay.
And it's diindolylmethane, and it further lowers the estrogen. And the second one is called tribulus extract, and what that does is it kicks up testosterone. And so, the idea here basically is to use a natural. This is as natural as bee poop. Okay, it's a natural approach to restoring testosterone to estrogen balance, and you can in fact do this without having to resort to pharmaceuticals. Been doing it for years. This was one of the things I gave my dad, my 90-year-old dad. So his friends thought it was amusing he was taking stud mix. Yeah, my dad had a hobby that they did not have, if you get my drift. So yeah, it's well worth doing. My dad was my hero.
Kathy's texted in. She said, a friend told me to stop protonics because her magnesium levels are, I told my friend, I should say,
Yes.
to stop protonics because her magnesium levels kept going too low.
Yes.
I've heard you say not to take acid reflux meds or PPI. Why and how to treat, please?
Excellent. Okay, there are a couple reasons right now why you want to get off those things. Stomach acid is there for a reason. It was not a bit of misengineering. Okay, your stomach acid acts as a moat. Okay, it protects you from the outside, the attackers, as it were. So impurities in your food, things like bacteria, viruses, parasites, they hit the stomach acid and it kills most of them. Okay, when you take away the stomach acid, it makes it far more likely that you're going to end up with foodborne illnesses and other sorts of bad things, parasites and whatnot. So the acid is important. Now, when you take it away, you got an issue. Protonics is particularly problematic because it will deplete the body of vitamin B12 and magnesium. So B12 deficiency, magnesium deficiency are very, very hard to treat in the presence of things like Protonix, Tagamet, Zantac, and whatnot. So you want to come off it. So the question then becomes, how do you deal with reflux esophagitis, GERD, G-E-R-D, heartburn if you're old school like me, and you take something called sucralfate, S-U-C-R-A-L-F-A-T-E. Sucralfate is a prescription. It's inexpensive. It used to be a branded medicine called Carafate. So when I was a young doc, okay, I was taught this stuff by a GP because I was coming and I said, we need to put people on Tagamet and Zantac, and he says, no, use sucralfate. Sucralfate is a topically acting medication, and it doesn't deplete the body of B12 magnesium and doesn't screw up certain proteolytic enzymes like pepsin, trypsin, and chymotrypsin. So you can actually have malabsorption syndromes by using these PPIs. And if you want to have some fun and do some real research, go to the National Library of Medicine and look at kidney failure and proton pump inhibitors.
That's fun. That's a fun day for you.
Well, no, it is when people come in and their EGFR, that's a measurement we use for kidney function, and I check it every time I draw blood on people. It drops when you take these medicines. And the trick is not to cause kidney failure. So you did a good thing by recommending that she come off of it. The second half of it is to use sucralfate, which is a prescription med, and it's cheap.
I've got time to squeeze in a quick call.
Cool.
All right. It's Kathy from Orlando, and she wants to know about babies and vaccinations. Hi, Kathy.
Yes.
Hey, Kathy girl, how are you doing?
Oh, fine. Yes, I'm just wondering what your opinion is on vaccinations for infants. My daughter had a baby 4 months ago, and she's asking my advice, and I can't give it to her because I'm not up to date with that kind of information.
Okay.
Can you give me your thoughts?
I'll be happy to do it. Okay, first thing about vaccinations is the vaccinations have saved hundreds of millions of lives since they were first introduced by Jenner back in the 18th century. Okay, so in general, the vaccination programs are very, very beneficial. When I was a kid, we had this thing called polio. Okay, and every month or two there'd be an empty desk. Okay, you'd have a classroom of 25 or 30 kids, and there'd be an empty desk. All right, empty desk meant somebody got knocked out with polio. Have her follow the pediatrician's advice and do it. The piece of advice I'm going to give you, though, okay, is that you need to go out and get a DTaP. That's a pertussis vaccine, so that way you don't give the kid these illnesses. Second thing is you need to go out and get a mumps vaccine, so you don't make your grandchild sick. You need to go out and get a shingles vaccine, so you don't make your kid sick.
There you go.
It doesn't end with a kid. Okay,
you got to keep following up on it.
You have to follow this.
That's right.
As I do. I've got 3 grandchildren in the past 2 years, and I'll tell you what, I feel like a pincushion.
You've been listening to Stages of Life Radio with Dr. David Klein on News Radio WFLA Orlando. We'll see you next week.
Yes. Spectacular Summer of Savings event. You
made it.
And another.
Fast. Yes, there was many.
Another one in the can.
Provendencia says that she tells her patients to stay in regular Medicare and avoid all those managed Medicare plans.
That's right. No, there's nothing good about these Medicare, these golden handcuff plans. Traditional red, white, and blue carrier card Medicare. That's what you're looking for. If you need something more, you get the pharmacy plan. Very, very important.
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching us on Facebook and everywhere else, and we love you. Mean it.
Hasta